1. I got a gig today as a writer on a kids' TV show. A playwright friend of mine hooked me up. I've never done much of that kind of work, but I figured it would be a good way to make some quick money without taking too much time away from my novel. The timing was crucial because last week I started reusing paper towels. I wasn't sure if the people at the show were going to call at all, frankly. I didn't think the interview went especially well. It was just the producer and me, and the whole time I was talking about my work experience, he kept leaning back in his Aeron chair, strumming an acoustic guitar and gazing out the window, only occasionally breaking the reverie to scroll through something that popped up on his laptop. But just when I'd wound down to a nearly catatonic state, having run entirely out of things to say about myself, he lurched forward and said, "So why do you want to write for children's television?" I leaned away and frenetically scanned my brain for an answer, then mumbled, "Well, I like children, and I like television." That was followed by 30 seconds of dead air while he eyed me as if I were some sort of medical curiosity. Then he stood up and said, "Okay, thanks," and whisked me out of the office. So I was surprised when they called and offered me the contract. 2. This is the sweetest setup I've ever had. It's like a playhouse for adults. Everyone is really friendly. The women in the front office are beautiful. And there's a giant ceramic bowl in the kitchen that's always filled with peanut M&Ms. The whole staff seems very enthusiastic about the show. The target audience is 4 to 6-year-olds, and apparently they've gotten a lot of positive feedback from parents and the educational research types who follow these things. It's all puppets, a bear, a pig, a rabbit, and so on, shot against a cheesy-looking computer-animated forest, but the kids seem to go for it. So far, I'm still going through last season's scripts and sitting in on story meetings. I was a little nervous about the whole thing at first. They take this stuff very seriously, but it is 4 to 6-year-olds, I'm thinking. So how hard can it be? 3. My first table read. The puppeteers sit around the lunch table on the set and give your script a cold read while the producer sits back and makes notes. He seemed pretty happy with it. He called it a good first effort. But one of the puppeteers, the guy who works the pig puppet, came up to me afterwards with a line of dialogue circled in red. He said Giblet, not the puppet's real name. Wouldn't say that. Well, I told him, I was thinking we could add another dimension to Giblet's character. Maybe give him a bit of an agenda, I said with a wink. He looked at me soberly. Giblet doesn't have an agenda. 4. I was hoping to inject a little politics into the show. I pitched an episode where the pig and the donkey are running in competition for a vaguely defined treasury position in the computer-animated forest. It all would have devolved into a mad scramble for power with the usual upshot about cooperation versus competition and maybe a subliminal lesson for the kids about how not to let hot-button social issues distract you from your true class interests. But the producer got hung up on a couple of technical points. First, he thought that the phrase pork barrel brought up the kind of associations for the pig character that, as he put it, were better left unexplored. What really seemed to bother him, though, was a small plot point that turned on the rabbit getting a pair of running shoes. Rabbits don't wear shoes, he said with a smirk, in front of the assembled cast and crew. That got a chuckle from the new kid they hired as script assistant. Well, I pointed out, he's wearing a vest. The vest is part of his character, the producer said solemnly, and the script assistant made a note. 5. The pressure to crank out scripts is beginning to build. We're 2 weeks behind the shooting schedule, and everybody looks stressed. My back has been going into spasms whenever I hunch over my desk to bang out puppet dialogue. Plus, I've been so wired at night, knowing how much work I have to do, I started taking Ambien to get to sleep. Sylvia, one of the other writers, suggested it. She explained that she and her husband, an overworked lawyer, take it to wind down from their jobs, and it keeps them from being at each other's throats. The only drawback, she said, is that after using it for a while, you start to feel a little surly by the next afternoon. Like you could eat glass, she said. 6. Last night, a woman at a party asked me what I do. Writing, I told her. What kind of writing? Well, I said, I'm working on a novel. Nothing. Her eyes glazed over as if I just said I scraped gum off movie theaters. But right now, I added, I'm also writing for a children's television show. Her face suddenly came alive. Really, she said. That must be fun. Yes, I said, warming to her enthusiasm and throwing in a knowing nod. It's fun, but it's a lot of work. 7. I am a puppet god. I take these inanimate objects, toys really, and create fully developed characters out of them. I give nuance to the crude sketches of their personalities. I give them life. My third script went over really well at the table read. The producer made a point of saying how much he liked it and how it showed that even a simple idea can work if it's executed well. After the read, the cute girl who works the donkey puppet gave me a big smile. 8. I've been editing scripts on the floor all week, flat on my back. It's the only way I can keep the spasms from starting up. I think it's the Ambien. At today's table read, the producer almost stepped on my head. I was lying on the floor behind one of the puppet maker's workbenches when he came bounding in to deliver the script. It was a freelance submission by his wife, a marketing executive at Bed Bath & Beyond, who, we were told, has a terrific story scene. Her script had the donkey and the bear deciding at the top of the first act to make a quilt together. It all goes swimmingly in a sort of dramatic flat line from beginning to end. They have tremendous fun. The quilt ends up looking terrific. None of the characters get up and move anywhere. Eliminating messy issues about things like set design. And along the way, we learn an alarming amount about quilt making. When the read was over, everyone sat in stony silence. Later in the afternoon at the markup session, Sylvia told us that she and her husband are having a trial separation. 9. It's like being on a slave ship. That's what I figured out. The writer's room is like the hold of the ship, each of us chained to our desks, manning the oars, while the head writer walks up and down the room, ready to crack the whip. I've never worked so hard in my life. I've never actually worked very hard at anything for any serious length of time, but I've had enough awful jobs and short stretches to know about back-breaking labor and mind-sucking monotony. This is worse. It's a miserable combination of the isolation and inescapable self-reliance of writing and the imprisonment, interpersonal horror, and spirit-robbing fluorescence of an office job. I don't even know if I'll make it the last 2 weeks. I'm determined not to quit, though. I've decided that if it comes to it, I'm going to make them fire me. I'll just sit at my desk and do nothing, stare at the wall and shovel down M&Ms until they come and carry me out. If nothing else, I'll squeeze a couple more weeks' pay out of them.
That's right.
One thing's for sure, I'll never take a job like this again. I'd rather scrape gum off movie theater seats. 10. I could see doing this again. It was hard work. It was hard work, sure, but that's what makes you good. If you're a craftsman, you use your craft. You don't sit around saying, I'm too good for this, I'm too good for that. You hone your skills. You take the skills you have and you hone them. Today was the wrap party for the season. I wasn't going to go. I was pretty white from pushing through for 11 hours on a final rewrite. I was trying to sneak out the side door when I ran into a pack of puppeteers and got herded along. It turned out to be more fun than I expected. The women in the front office made it a celebration of the writers. They had us wear crowns made out of newspaper and number 2 pencils and stand for group photos in the middle of the restaurant, which was a little humiliating. But even with that, I enjoyed the attention. I flirted with a couple of the front office women, and the cute girl who works the droopy puppet told me how much she liked the way I fleshed out his character. You made him more than some dysfunctional donkey, she said. After a couple of hours in the open bar, even the puppeteer for Giblet pulled me aside. We've had our differences, man, he told me, but I respect you, because you respect the puppet. At At the end of the night, the producer gave me an awkward hug and told me about another project he's got in the works that he thinks I'd be perfect for. It's about an extended family of punctuation marks who play winter sports and, from what I can tell, live in a sort of dyslexic alpine village. He asked me if I thought that sounded interesting. It does, I told him. It definitely does. I definitely think it does.